everybody. Thank you so much indeed for joining me again for this final module on nucleotides and nucleotide nutrition. I am joined by the utterly brilliant Rachel Hoyle, who runs Nucleotide Nutrition. And honestly, what this lady does not know about nucleotides and nucleotide nutrition just simply isn't worth knowing. This course that Rachel's put together for you is so completely and utterly fascinating. I have to explain to you that Nucleotide Nutrition, Rachel's company, is a CMA approved supplier. This is a type of membership level within the auspices of the Complementary Medical Association that is reserved only for the best of the best of the best. This is not a membership that people can just get just because they apply to join, because they're a company. Absolutely far from it. We have to know that this particular company is going above and beyond the call of duty when it comes to providing services and products and so on into our profession that supports the profession, that really adds something. You know, you couldn't just come along and say, hello, I've got vitamin C. We'd be saying, well, yes, but you know, so do many, many other people. You have to be doing something unique. So I hope that really helps you to understand that what Rachel is talking about in this course that she's put together for you is something so unique and so important and groundbreaking. And this is why we're so proud to have Nucleotide Nutrition as one of our approved supplier members. So Rachel, thank you for the work you do. And thank you for the massive time and dedication you have put into this. This is your life's work that we're talking about here. And that's not to be sniffed at. And I honestly, hats off to you, because what you're doing is utterly, utterly brilliant. And we're very lucky to have you with us today. So Rachel, thank you for joining us. And please, let's start with summing up, you know, and bringing everything together to bring to a close what we've spoken about previously.
Well, thanks, Janie. I mean, it's been such an exciting time for me from the late 80s to now. Such a lot of exciting and interesting work, you know, building, if you like, the different jigsaw pieces, trying to get enough pieces together to form a really good picture to understand like the role of nucleotides in our body. Yes. And why they're so important to our health and well-being. It's been a fascinating time.
Absolutely, yes.
I mean, it's obviously not just our work, because most of our work has been to do with the use of nucleotide supplements for adults. Initially, it was all about how to help our poor farm animals under a lot of stress, but also the work that's been done looking at taking the content of what's in mother's breast milk, which is high in nucleotides, and making sure that those babies that have to have infant formula also have the nucleotides as well. That was where the initial clinical studies was done by infant formula companies and independent researchers, just to see if adding in the nucleotides that were high in breast milk, whether having them in the infant formula improved basically the formula milk. And yes, it did. So you'll see, you know, that when you buy your infant formula, that nucleotides are the nutrients that are supplemented in there too. So yes, all sorts of different strands to nucleotides supplementation. Animals, babies. There are some ICU, intensive care recovery foods also that have nucleotides in as well. So, you know, it's there's more and more work that's been done, and it continues, not just the work research that we do, but also independent of us. So it is, you know, finding those additional pieces of the jigsaw and getting a much clearer position now as to the importance of nucleotides to our health. So that's good.
Absolutely. And what you've done so brilliant, I think, is you know, you've taken all of this disparate work and all this disparate information and sort of acted almost, I think, as an aggregator and you've brought it all together and seen the bigger picture and the way that nucleotides can be used for human health. So obviously, as explained earlier, they are the building blocks to DNA and RNA and have many other uses in the body. So can you just sort of sum up by saying, where does the body obtain its nucleotide requirement from?
Absolutely. The three main sources, four if you include supplementation. The first main source to mention is the de novo process, so the body-owned production from the individual chemicals that are required to produce a nucleotide. So a lot of that's done in the liver. 12 to 14 biochemical steps, depending on whether it's a purine or a pyrimidine type nucleotide, and quite a lot of energy involved in that. But that's one of the main ways that the body gets its nucleotides.
Excellent.
Another way is the salvage pathway. So dying cells, the body tries to salvage as much as it can from its dying cells, including nucleotides. And again, it's a fairly inefficient route, but it's a very important route and takes quite a lot of energy. But it's one of the main ways that the body will get its nucleotide requirement.
Right. Yes. Sorry, I cut across you.
No, that's okay. And then the final way is from dietary sources. Food, and depending on which food has a nucleotide content, which varies to a degree. And we'll talk about how much is delivered from different types of food. But so you can get your nucleotides from the diet. The body breaks down the food and releases the nucleotides. It's a fairly inefficient process, sort of about 15% efficient, but it's an absolutely key source of nucleotides for certain types of cells. And these are particularly the short-lived, rapidly required cells of things like the immune system, the gut lining, gut bacteria, bone marrow cells, so red blood cells. These are the sorts of cells that need to get the nucleotides from the diet. So those are the three main ways: de novo, salvage, and diet.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you about where there is the highest demand, but actually you've just covered that, which is fantastic. And the other thing I was going to ask you is there such a thing as a minimum quantity we need from our diets to keep us healthy?
Yeah, it varies depending on how much stress you're in, I suppose, and what your disease state is. But between 1,500 and 2,000 milligrams of nucleotides are required from the diet. If you have a chronic disease or you're under a high amount of stress, then you're looking at over 2,500 milligrams. If you're getting less than that, then you tend to get more chance of chronic situations continuing.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Yes. I would love to look at. I'd love to look at the sort of from a personal level, the impact of autoimmunity on nucleotide requirement. My supposition, I don't know if you would agree with this, but my supposition would be that it would be much, much higher.
Yes, it's an area that we'd love to do more research in. But yes, I mean, I think that the nucleotides, if we were to, able to do research, would look at how by adding in additional purified forms could help modulate things better to overcome the autoimmunity. Such a vast area, and it's an area that we'd love to do research in.
Yes, I'm sure.
Yeah, we're we've touched mainly more working knowledge on autoimmune conditions that are related to the gut, and found very good responses there. But there are so many different types of autoimmune conditions that, yeah, I'm sure that there's a very healthy requirement for nucleotides, if you like to use that term, in those situations. Yeah,
I'm sure there must be, just thinking about the sheer demand on the body, on the body. So yeah. Now, previously when we spoke earlier, you said there is something called a conditional essentiality for nucleotides. Which ones?
Yeah, I mean, most people don't think of nucleotides as being essential. Like, you take the amino acids, you know that lysine and methionine are essential. The body has to eat them, if you like, to get them. We like to think of nucleotides as being a conditionally essential, in as much as there are situations where the body can't make enough or salvage enough, or even get enough from the diet to maintain health. And in those situations, there is a conditional essentiality to get them some other way, and supplementation would help resolve that situation. Now, the main the deficiency for nucleotides tend to be with the pyrimidine type nucleotides, because if you look at different foods, the content of nucleotides in the foods varies. The total content of nucleotides, talking of the 5 nucleotides here, will vary to different types of food. But what is fairly consistent is that where you find nucleotides in food, it's the purines that make up the majority of that content. So most foods, there's over 80% of the nucleotides are the purine type. So that's the adenosine and guanosine, the ones that tend to make up the energy molecules. So the pyrimidines are the ones that would be in a shortage. And so if you're short on pyrimidine, you tend to have inefficient systems. And what we've so what we've been able to do, looking at the different types of foods, analysing their nucleotide content, and we know from our work that if you eat organ meats, you're getting a lot more. If you eat meat, you're getting a fair bit. If you're a vegetarian or vegan, you're not getting nearly as much, because those types of foods have a lower content of nucleotides. But apart from the organ meats, the other thing that is very similar for all those other types of foods is that they are higher in purines than they are pyrimidines. So when we've come to that decision, and also when you look at mother's milk, breast milk, the content of nucleotides is higher in pyrimidines.
Right. Can I just ask there at that point then, so for people who need to avoid purines, what is the impact of nucleotide nutrition upon them?
Okay, so with purines, if you have an inability to process those, you can end up with gout. So the things about pyrimidines is they don't go down the same breakdown pathway. So pyrimidines don't cause the same issue, and the body can just get rid of them in a normal way without a build-up leading to something like a gout. So I suppose it's important to say that the nucleotide formulas that we've developed for use in supplements are higher in the pyrimidine forms, so they won't have such a problem with creating, issues for getting rid of them if they're not taken up. Now, if you're providing nucleotides that the body needs, then they're going to use them, and the first area of use will be in the gut mainly, and the microbiome. So it's important when you develop a product that you develop it in such a way that you're providing something that the body needs, and the body needs mainly the pyrimidines rather than the purines. So what we say, and precaution, is that if somebody has a gout condition, then if they need to take and supplement with nucleotides, then they should start small and measure the impact. We hope, our hope is that though we do have some purines in the formula, because there are obviously molecules in the body that are based around the purine, like the energy, the ATP and the GTP. There is a requirement for sometimes for extra purines. The work we've done shows that the body mops up the nucleotides that we're providing quite early on. We're fulfilling a need, and so therefore the body doesn't need to try and excrete them. It's really worth understanding that one nucleotide isn't the same as the next one, and we have to work out which ones are deficient and then resolve it around that, rather than just saying, well, this is nucleotides and it will do you good. We have to understand that there are different nucleotides, and we have to make sure that we're providing the right ones, the ones that have a conditional essentiality.
Yes, excellent. And what is so special about your particular formulas?
I think we've touched on it a little bit, in as much that our formulas have got the much higher levels in there of the pyrimidine type. So we're meeting that conditional essentiality by doing that. The other thing is these nucleotides are purified, so they're very readily absorbed in the gut. So it's the two things. It's having the right type of nucleotide and having it in the right form for it to be absorbed efficiently. I think that's probably the best way of describing it.
And things like stomach acid don't sort of affect the absorption or anything like that?
No, well, if you imagine with the food, it's breaking down the body to release the nucleotide. So no, the molecules are very robust, and make it through the stomach into the intestines.
Excellent, that's fantastic. And just in closing, can you summarize the evidence base that shows that there is a conditional essentiality for nucleotides? Because I know that obviously you've touched on the vast numbers of well, I said got vast numbers, but the numbers of clinical trials, and they are growing. But yes, I'd love to know a little bit more about those, and also how people can read them for themselves.
Yeah, well, apart from the clinical work that's been done by with infants, and to back up their use in infant formula, and the numerous animal studies looking to get rid of the antibiotic growth promoters, our clinical work has been across a range of conditions, all of which involve the cells in the body that are fast replicating, because those are the ones that need to have the nucleotides coming from the diet. So the trials are being done with colds and flu, looking at a symptom-based study, looking at the impact of nucleotide supplementation on different symptoms. And there we found that we had a positive impact on reducing the decline in IgA, salivary IgA, and the symptoms that we reduced the severity were earache, sinus pain, and return to taste. We've done a clinical trial with IBS participants, another symptom-based trial, and that was a crossover placebo-controlled study. And there we had an impact on diarrhea, abdominal pain, urgency, and feelings of incomplete evacuation. So 2 big areas, all showing significant impact and all published. The other main area that we've done trials in is with stress. We've done 3 main types of stress trials: intensive stress, moderate endurance, and resistance stress. And in each and every case, we've blunted the buildup of cortisol, so there's less damage created, and also less depression of the immune system. And we've been able to show with markers that we've improved the immune status by looking at the salivary IgA again. So, you know, it's quite a range of clinical studies, all looking at fast replicating cell areas and the impact on health. Another trial was done DNA repair, and that was very exciting because that showed that by having nucleotide supplementation, we could actually repair damage that was done to lymphocyte cells. So, yeah, there is a good body of research now that we've done, and we'd love to do more.
Yes, of course. Would you be able to provide links to the research? Because I'm sure that lots of people that watching this would love to take a look at the papers.
Yeah.
Perhaps we could actually maybe put them in the show notes. That would be wonderful.
I would be delighted to provide links to the Dropbox where they're all held. So there's the actual published papers and presentations. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think that's so important, and thank you for putting all of that together and for making it available to people.
No, that's fine.
It really is, you know, it's very, very crucial. If you're making a clinical decision about how to treat, then, you know, you really should be doing this as a practitioner from an evidence standpoint. So absolutely. This is so wonderful, Rachel. Is there anything else that you'd like to say in order to finalize and to sum up, because we've come to the end of our... I
would like to say, I think it's very difficult for a health practitioner. They develop a protocol for a particular client, which involves, you know, different nutrients. And then someone like me comes along and says, look, my products, you must consider them. And they think, well, I've already developed a protocol and it's sort of working okay. And there's complications of another product to go in. And all I would say is that you could look at nucleotides as being a protocol enhancer, because by actually using the nucleotides, you're creating a much improved situation in the gut for your nutrients that you've already created a protocol to be absorbed and utilized by the body. So maybe seeing, you know, the nucleotide formula as a way of enhancing your protocol might be good. And often when I, you know, talk individually to health practitioners, I say, well, try it on a client where you've developed a protocol, but it's not really working to the extent that you feel it ought to, because it could be that it's being let down, your protocol is being let down by, you know, the fact that the gut isn't absorbing the nutrients as they should be.
Absolutely, yes. And what I think is also incredibly important is for people to realize that this is not just something for nutritional practitioners. You know, this is something that can be used, I think, across the board in complementary medicine.
Yeah.
No matter which discipline you practice, because, you know, again, for example, you know, with my homeopathic hat on, I would be looking at my patient perhaps and thinking, do you know something? I'm absolutely, completely convinced this is the correct remedy. I'll check with my colleagues, you know, because there's so many wonderful, you know, professional colleagues, and we all speak, you know, together and have sort of online case conferences, obviously with complete anonymity for the cases that we're talking about. But, you know, we do help each other out, and people will say, no, you've had that really, yeah, that definitely looks right. Well done for checking in, but no, absolutely. And then I think, you know, by adding, this gives you somewhere else to go with your client or your patient. Similarly for acupuncturists, for massage practitioners, body workers, sports therapists. I mean, it's endless, isn't it, Rachel? I think it's wonderful.
It is, and it's one of the reasons why we've developed a range of products. They're all based around the nucleotide formula, which we call Nucleotide.
Yes.
We have a formula which is just the nucleotide formula with some carriers that help make it soluble. That's the Nucleotide NT, and that's the one which could be used, say, as a protocol enhancer, because you don't have to adjust the protocol because there's no other nutrients in there that, you know, you're supplying along, you know, with your other products. But we have an immunity product which is called NuCell IM, and that is the nucleotide formula, but it's combined with some nutrients that support the immune response. So, you know, if you wanted a standalone product, that one would be a good one for the, you know, supporting the immune system. Or indeed, the IBS clinical trial was done with a product called Intestate IB, and that was nucleotide formula with different vitamins and amino acids to support digestive response. So
yes,
you don't have to.
Sorry, I was just going to ask you, so if a practitioner was perhaps unsure, can they make contact with you and say, Rachel, which one should I be using?
Absolutely.
You know? Okay, that would be great. And I know your site is brilliant as well. So, you know, please, everybody, you know, do use Rachel's site as a good resource as well. I think that's really crucial to let people know. Again, of course, obviously we've got the details about how to contact you under this video. But Rachel, I think this is extraordinary and wonderful and incredibly valuable for us all. So I just want to thank you so much for everything that you've been, you know, so generously able to share with us over these 6 little mini snippets, you know, of information that I think comes together really brilliantly as a sort of a full overview. And I think we're just very, very lucky to be able to learn from you. So thank you for that.
Oh, Janie, thank you very much, and thank you so much for your interest. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Oh, thank you so much, Rachel. And everybody watching, please remember that, you know, we do love to hear from you, either in the comments below this video, or of course, you know, you can email us, and it's never ever a problem. And that's what we're here for. We're here to help. So thank you so much for joining us. Rachel, thank you so much for being with us and sharing your wisdom. And we look forward to hearing from you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.